Get 25% off a subscription to Babbel by clicking the link below. Babbel helps make our show possible, and it's an app I actually use myself to improve my Italian, and it's definitely the first language learning app I'd recommend to anyone. Go check it out. So as many of you know, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has endorsed Bernie Sanders for president. Now, I've already said, and some of you disagree with me, I don't believe that AOC's endorsement is going to do that much for Bernie because her constituency is more than likely already supporting Bernie. What I mean by that is, if you are someone who is of the mindset that I don't know who I'm going to support, but once AOC says who she's supporting, I'm going to support someone, it's not that likely that that's the position you're in. You're probably already leaning towards or supporting Bernie Sanders. So I know some of you disagree with that assessment. That's fine. It's a difference of opinion. It's a beautiful thing, okay? Something interesting happened when Bernie Sanders and AOC were interviewed on the day of their massive rally. I believe that this was the biggest rally for any candidate in the 2020 election cycle, just a massive, massive rally at which AOC endorsed Bernie. I don't know if this was right before or after the event, but a reporter went to AOC and sort of played the identity politics game, saying, why are you, a woman of color, endorsing an old white guy like Bernie Sanders, who was sitting right next to AOC during this interview? And there are many things that I want to comment on here, but first let's look at the video.
You made history with your election, and you both are part of the most diverse Congress in history. This is also the most diverse Democratic presidential field ever. I'm going to be a little blunt with you, Congresswoman, and don't take offense, Senator, but as a woman of color, why back an old white guy? And is this the future of the party?
Yeah, I think I'm actually very excited about this partnership because it shows what we have to do in our country, is that we have to come together across race, across gender, across generation, and across class in order to establish our basic systems as rights.
So AOC's answer is basically fine, but we really need to talk more broadly about this question because there's some important stuff here. Now, some people wrote to me when they saw this video, this question, and said, David, look at this. It's some kind of disgusting reverse identity politics thing, and it's terrible. Others wrote to me and said, AOC has talked about the importance of supporting minority politicians. So she could have supported or endorsed Kamala Harris. She could have endorsed Cory Booker or Tulsi Gabbard or Andrew Yang, but she is instead endorsing Bernie, the old white guy. And it's a good thing to bring this up to her and to give her an opportunity to explain why she decided to endorse the old white guy. Now, the reality is that there's multiple analyses here, and I think we should make all of them in order to really do this properly. In principle, there is nothing wrong with a reporter saying, listen, Congresswoman, you've said X is important. How does your endorsement of Bernie square with that? And in this case, it's you've said supporting minority politicians is important. How does endorsing Bernie square with that? No problem. And of course, the answer is, well, Bernie's platform and Bernie's policies would get directly to the heart of many of the inequalities that I want to solve. And a lot of those inequalities run across racial lines. So Bernie's identity is not at issue here. His platform is at issue. And by supporting Bernie, I am supporting minority Americans of all stripes. That would be a completely reasonable thing to do. What I think people are reacting to is that the reporter seems to be doing it to sort of be edgy and controversial or whatever, calling Bernie an old white guy to his face is part of the optics of the whole thing. And I get it that it feels sort of deliberately sensationalist and some people aren't liking that. So I understand that. But there's another issue here that I have not heard discussed anywhere, which is that Bernie Sanders is part of a minority group that is one of the most persecuted minority groups in human history. Bernie Sanders is Jewish, and this is not politically correct, but I don't care about that. There are stereotypes and conspiracies about Jews and money and power in the United States, and unfortunately, it has become almost like a faux pas on the left to talk about Jews as a minority group that has suffered massive historical discrimination, genocide attempted against Jews, kicked out of I don't even know how many countries it is. So there's another angle to this that is an important one to discuss if you want to play the game that the reporter is playing, which is, aside from what's important being the platform of Bernie, not Bernie's identity and Bernie's story are of minority struggle. Bernie's parents came to the United States before the Holocaust. They did the, outsider immigrant struggle thing, for lack of a better term. But not everybody in Bernie's family made it to the United States. Relatives of Bernie's were killed in German-occupied Poland during the Holocaust. And Bernie Sanders, like many Jewish Americans, was front and center as a participant in the civil rights movement of the second half of the 20th century. So you can analyze this by saying the question was a bad one. At minimum, it was a poorly asked question. You can say, well, AOC's endorsement is the correct one because she's focusing on platform over identity. But even if you don't want to do any of that stuff and you want to do an identity politics analysis, it shouldn't be a faux pas for Bernie's identity and Bernie's family history to be part of the story, as it is for so many Jews who became key players and partners in the fight for civil rights of all kinds for all sorts of people in the United States and around the world. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what your reaction is to the video. Let me know what you think about AOC's answer and handling of it. But also, let me know what you think about the other analysis that exists. If we want to suspend, at least for me, if I suspend for a moment my disdain for these types of identity politics, alliances, allegiances, analyses, call them what they want, there's actually an interesting identity story that links Bernie Sanders to struggle for racial equality, struggle for class equality, and that's not a story that's being told. And I think it's a story that is considered, as I said, a faux pas, unfortunately, among many on the left and also among the white nationalist right, by the way, who see Jews as, the uber privileged of any group, as we've heard many times, even from people I've interviewed on the program. I want to hear from you. Leave me a reply on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube, or send me a tweet at @dpakman. How do you interpret all of this? Quick break, right back after this.